Welcome to CSB TV's celebration of Women's History Month. We will be looking back at some of our women guests who are making history in today's present. Let's take a look. It's time for another musical interlude. Let's get started. Talking with people with music in their genes, their blood, and in their soul. You are watching Musical Interlude. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Musical Interlude. I am your host, Casey Bell, and today's guest is singer, musician, and writer, and composer, Lacy James. Let's get started. All right, so when did you first notice your musical talent?
Oh gosh, probably, well, when I started really enjoying music, I was very small, and I know I used to go and sing outside when I would walk the dog or anything we had to do at school. You know, I loved all the music, musical activities, but I also was told by my parents that when I was about 2, we had to drive across country and I was singing commercials the whole time, driving them crazy. So I think that was probably the first sign.
That's cool. So when did you decide to do it as a profession as opposed to, because the art world as a whole is seen as a hobby still, unfortunately, even though
Yes.
without it, I don't think this world would be going on without art as a whole. So when did you
Yeah.
decide I'm going to do this as my career?
I mean, you know, growing up, I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do because I had a lot of interests, but I did used to, you know, have dreams sometimes of I would like, you know, sing in the hairbrush in the mirror and, you know, practice my dance moves like all the pop stars. So I thought about it, you know, and I was in some musicals in school and even community theater a little bit. But even in college, I still wasn't sure. But then at some point, uh, I actually I did a semester in Ireland in college, and I was in a pub, and that somebody asked me to sing this song. I said I knew the streets of Laredo, and I had learned that in school, you know, and they really wanted me to sing it. And when I was singing it, like everybody just got quiet. And so even though I had, you know, sort of flirted with the idea of going into a performing career, or I was always a writer as well. That was sort of the moment where I was like, I feel the communication, the effect, and what I can give to people, and that it means something to them, and it feels good to me, you know, means something to me. So that kind of was the last thing that really made me decide to do it. And also thinking about I'm a writer. I had never written any songs, but I was like, how can I use everything to create together and something that I would enjoy? So that was around the time that I made that decision, probably during college.
Amazing. So how did you, I mean, today you can go on YouTube and learn anything, but back in the day, there wasn't really much of any, you just had to figure stuff out. So how did you figure out how to get into the business and what did you do?
Um, well, I read a lot of books about the business. That's what I usually do. I'm like, well, I better learn about everything. And, you know, I probably really, I mean, I did learn a lot about the business, but I wasn't especially great at the business. So, but it was all helpful. And really, I realized that I wanted to actually write the music to like to be involved in the production side. So, it was just so much to learn. And, uh, I just started writing songs, and I even went back to school to community college for music, just only music, after my regular degree. So that helped me kind of like get on a schedule and pick up the skills that maybe I hadn't really had yet. And I had played the cello growing up, but I left it aside because I really was more into pop music by the time I was a teenager. And, you know, so I could still kind of play a little bit, but I don't have my cello anymore. So, but then I was writing songs, and then I was able to make excuse me, my first record with some really great musicians. So I learned a lot during that process. That was probably I don't know if you really remember, maybe you remember that I think you actually noticed me back at that time, and I've sort of kept up off and on with you since then, and that was a long time ago. So I had a break in between, and I came back many years later and did another album, but I was in between. I was a dancer. That's why I moved away from music for a while, because I was pursuing dance and choreography. But I feel like it's all, for me, it's all part of the same thing. So whatever I learned from music or dance, it feeds into the other thing, or even writing. So I don't really feel like I ever stopped making my work, but it was just taking different forms, at different times.
Yes, I do remember that. Actually, I do. I think it was kind of like a dance company you had.
I did. Well, and that's what happened. I started off doing songs, and I made an album, but it took a long time to make the album. And I was also becoming a dancer, and I realized I have to dance. I really just have to pursue this while I'm young enough to do it, because I didn't grow up really training. And so then I had a small company, and I did a lot of pieces, and that was what I did for many years. And I still was doing my music some, but I never really had very much live performing as a musician until actually in the last 10 years. And so that was because I couldn't really play something to accompany myself. I had written on keyboards and written a lot of parts, and that we used some of them in the album, but I also just wanted to work with musicians that were better than me. So and then I started dancing. So I had never really learned to accompany myself. And that actually was a big stumbling block for me when I came back to it, because to be able to, you can't always necessarily have other musicians around, and especially if you want to perform frequently. So now I finally can play something enough to accompany myself. So I've been actually performing more music than I ever had before in my life live. So, it's all just been a really process that went through a lot of different directions.
Talk about your song "Old Languages." What is I guess you can say, what is the song about, and why did you write it? What was the inspiration?
So that's actually, it is kind of a mystical love song idea, but it also was very inspired by the idea of how ancient languages can get lost, or languages that a culture is disappearing, the language may disappear as well. And it's just very interesting to me. You may have read some about this before, that certain, in one language, the way that something is expressed cannot always be completely exactly translated into another language sometimes. So it's not just the words, it's like the whole way of thinking that can be lost if it's lost. And so that was in my mind, and I was just writing of the different cultures. I used some words to express sort of storytellers, and the griot and the troubadour and Shanachie, and people from different cultures that were probably the songwriters, the storytellers, the bards, whatever culture it was, that sort of passed that down and passed the history down as well for a lot of those cultures. So that's a lot. But it is also just a love song about, before our time is done, let's not let go of this before it's too late, and it's kind of like that as well. So I can always talk a lot about my songs, and then I'm like, should I? Because
It's
people
fine.
also want to have their own, images. But so that was the basics of of where that came from, I would say.
So I noticed you did a few virtual concerts. What is it like going from live to virtual?
Yeah, the live streaming kind of thing. It's, well, that was something because of the kind of music that I do, and just several other factors, but mainly because of that, I thought that is something I really wanted to get into. And it's as hard as things have been, in the last year or so with the pandemic, that was the time that pushed me to finally do that. So I've been doing it a lot, and I'm planning to continue, even after the pandemic, because that I really like it, and it's a whole other way of performing because you have the interaction with people that are there live with you, and you can talk to them if they're putting up comments, and I really, really enjoy that. And it's very spontaneous, and you can sort of it's more like a community, so I like it. And you learn a lot. You learn a lot. I was busking some before that started. Before the pandemic, I would go in the park, and I did a lot of busking for a while. And that was also somewhat similar because you don't know who's going to be coming by. You don't know if they're into the kind of music you do. And some days, like, no one even looks at you or says anything, but then other days people just love it so much, and they come up and they're like, oh God, I was having a terrible day and you just made me feel so good. And so it's really it's similar to that too, and that you may have some people that know you that come to listen, but sometimes it's just people that stumble across what you're doing.
One of the things I will say about the art world is, I don't know how long it's been, but I know for a while now they've had access to virtual concerts, but they never did it because I guess it just wasn't on their mind. And now that they're forced to do it, I like it too. And I hope that once the pandemic is over, they don't get rid of it completely, that they do
Yeah,
a mixture of live. And because you're now opening your audience up to people who don't live in your state, people who don't live in your country, as opposed to just people who are willing to drive to that particular spot. So I hope
exactly.
it continues.
Yeah, I agree. And that is why, because like especially if you're doing something that's not, you know, maybe super commercial or really mainstream, then you have more of a chance for people that would be interested in what you're doing to be able to find you, I think.
Amazing. So my last question I have for you today is, if you could collaborate with a musician, whether they're known or unknown, whether they're dead or whether they're alive, anyone who inspired you in your journey in the music, who would it be and why?
There's so many people, and I remember I watched some of your videos, so I did think that this question was going to be coming, but then I forgot that this question was coming. So, and so whatever I say, it could be so many other people too, but I think I'm just going to say right now, Brian Eno, because there is a part of me that has always played with electronic music. And when I was actually in studying music in school, I took some electronic composition, and I had to do like experimental electronic stuff. And I always like, using atmospheric sound and playing in the studio. Anyone that worked with me in the studio is going to tell you some crazy stories of how, let's try this. And, I love that in the studio, playing with it, or even at my own home studio. But I don't get to do that nearly enough. So if I was collaborating with Brian Eno, he would be, I would just be sitting there watching him, but it would be a very amazing experience. And maybe we would do something cool together if he would ever try that with me. So I'll say him for now.
To find that old song together. Speak to me in the old languages. Give me words that can feed my soul. Steady me in the swirling irony. Hold me, keeps us in the cold. the Shaniki, Creole and Troubadour chant their way into the room, covering me with a sacred symmetry. Sing it with a silver tongue. This rhapsody echoes from long ago, from Babel to Babylon. Speak to me in the old languages, give me words that can feed my soul. Steady me in the swirling irony, only keeps us in the
That is all the time we have for you today on Musical Interlude. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, viewers and audience. And to Lacy James, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day. Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Gold Mind. I am your host, Casey Bell, and today's guest is Megan Brame. Let's get this show started. All right, so being an entrepreneur, were you raised in an entrepreneur household?
That's an excellent question. Yes and no. I think that my family was very hands-on, very DIY with things, but in terms of creating actual businesses, I'd say no. But they were always very did it their own way. So I think that's where my entrepreneurial background kind of stemmed from.
And when did you decide to technically be an entrepreneur? When did that first come to your mind?
I guess college. I had done a skincare company. Well, I mean, it started as just, a craft show kind of thing, and it merged into a skincare company that became just this industry darling and had all these awards, industry awards. It got my name in the New York Times and all this really cool stuff, but it started from just trying to figure out a way to make extra money in college.
Awesome. Were there any hurdles or fears, or because it seems like you just did it just to do it, and but was there, some people want to start a business, but they don't because they're afraid they don't have the degree, they don't have the this, they don't have the that. So did you just go in unknowingly, or did you have a fear before you started?
I went in unknowingly, which was it was just, the hubris of being 20, 21 and thinking like, I can do this. It's fine. I also graduated during the recession. So I think that sort of stemmed in addition to realizing that there weren't really a lot of job opportunities for someone like me. I graduated with a degree in social sciences, which was fun to learn, but when I became a senior and was about to graduate, I realized oh, I don't really have a lot of options here, so I'm going to have to do it as I go. And I think that was a big driving factor, and the fears and the things that keep you awake at night, those sort of came after.
Okay. So let's talk about your business. You do digital marketing. How did you get in that market?
So when I was running my skincare company, I was terrified to give up control of anything. It was about 8 years into it, and I wouldn't let anybody in. I did all the packaging, all the marketing, all the customer service, the bookkeeping, the product design, like everything. It was me. And I said at the time that it was because there was no money available. But what was actually the case was just I was afraid to let people in and see the cluster fluff, if you will, of an operation that I was running. And I had actually ended up burning out because of that, and realized that this business that I had created had turned from this dream career into just a job I hated. I hated to go to it every day, and I ended up walking away from it. I could have sold it, but it was just sort of like a bad relationship where you want to break it off and just start fresh. So when I did that, I had to figure out, what do I want to be when I grow up now? I still have to earn a living. And I had this blog that I was running called Handmade Brooklyn. And it was sort of just a compendium of these different entrepreneurs that I was meeting around New York City and all of these really cool things. And it had begun to evolve into me talking about the experiences that I had as an entrepreneur. And from there, I began to realize that that was really what I enjoyed doing. I really enjoyed talking to people about how a business is run and the ins and outs and sort of like the mechanics of what a quote unquote successful business should look like. And from there, I began to realize that what I was really interested in and what really sparked my imagination and, made me corner people at cocktail parties was talking about marketing. It was really fascinating to me, the ways that things just sort of could click for people in such a way. And so that became really the driving force of not only what was interesting to me, but what I was able to help other entrepreneurs do. And so that's how I became a marketing strategist, just learning something that I was really passionate about and becoming just insatiable for finding out more information and teaching other people. And I created the business out of it.
So let's say someone comes to you looking for your services. What do you offer? What can they look for? What exactly does your business offer to your clients?
So what I say is that I am essentially, you're hiring a vice president of marketing for your business. And what my clients will do when they come to me is we'll create a marketing plan for them. I usually deal with entrepreneurs who are either what I call kitchen table entrepreneurs, like they're just about to make the transition to full-time, or they've been in their business for a while and feel like it's sort of stagnant. And what we'll do is we'll sit down, we'll work on what it is that their marketing plan is either lacking, or if they don't have one, we'll start from the beginning and create their avatar, talk about features versus benefits, create a SWOT analysis, start realizing where their customers are, how they can talk to them, and what sort of conversions we should look at for data. Because unfortunately with marketing, it's not 10 Instagram followers equals $10. It's much more nuanced than that. So it's my job as the temporary VP of marketing to teach these people how to become entrepreneurs who understand the concept of marketing and what it can do for a business. It doesn't have to be a black hole you throw money into. It's just about creating a conversation with your ideal customers and showing them how you solve their problems.
Neat. What is something you've learned in marketing? I'm sure there's multiple, but give us 2 mistakes you see often business people make in marketing.
The biggest one that I think I see too often is that people want to be everywhere. They want to be on all social media platforms because they're there, and why not use them? And there's so much burnout that comes along with that. So one thing that I tell people and coach my clients with is stop trying to be everywhere. Be where your customers are. If you're not a visual company, don't be on Instagram. If you're not, if you are a visual company, then maybe Twitter's not right for you. Like figure out who your ideal customers are and how they utilize the platform. And then that's where you're able to kind of pinpoint your marketing and target your your marketing strategy to become more effective. And I would say the other thing I see is people starting to advertise too quickly. I think that you just sort of assume that what I need to do for marketing is create a Facebook ad, and I need to throw money at that, and I need to just put that in because that's what everyone else is doing. But what I usually caution people towards is not advertising right away. You need to understand who your ideal customer is, where they are, and what they're looking for. And by doing that, you're able to sort of trim down all of the fat there and figure out how you can pinpoint them accurately, which is going to save you so much money. So those are the two biggest things that I usually coach my clients with.
Great. So what is a mistake you say you made during your process of entrepreneurship that you wish you would have known prior to making it?
This is going to sound so egotistical, but I don't regret any of the decisions that I made because they brought me here to talk to you. And, like I don't regret any of those bad moments. What I think I would have, in an ideal world, I wish I would have learned how to be more vulnerable as an entrepreneur the first time around and let people into my business and let people help me. Nobody gets any awards for being the busiest person. And so I was very much trying to impress people by showing how busy I was when I was just destroying myself and burning myself out. And I wish that I had learned earlier that it's not a badge of honor to be that person. You need to let people in that know what they're doing. And, this is such a trope, but I feel like it really is true. The money comes when you do let people in. I think that people are afraid to spend money on apps or services or people because they think like, I don't have that money. But what they realize and what I realized later on is that when I was able to let people into this business as as a marketing strategist, I have a staff behind me. I get to focus on the things that do earn money rather than doing all of that back end stuff. And so the money comes because my time is more focused on money making activities rather than, figuring out what social media content to post.
That's great advice. Now, I'm going to make an assumption that
Sure.
you had to make changes, but the pandemic hasn't really affected your business as much as others. But
Yeah.
what were some of the things you had to change?
That's an excellent question. I was very fortunate in that most of my clients were already online. And so I didn't really have to change a lot, but I began to reach out to people more who were affected, and not for a sales tactic, but I just noticed so many people who felt like they were flailing and struggling and, untethered. And so what I did is start to really focus on those people and not sell them anything, but just like, how can I help you? What is it in your business that you feel like is rudderless and is making you feel this way? Like how can you not let the pandemic become the end all be all, but just become a pivot point? And that was something that I really tried hard to focus on last year.
Right. Now, this might be a little difficult question to answer, but
Okay.
if you know of any off the top of your head during your process of being an entrepreneur, if you were inspired by any entrepreneurs dead or alive and you would like to sit down and talk to them, meet them, have lunch with them, who would this entrepreneur be and why?
The first one who comes to mind is Amy Porterfield. When I was running my skincare business, I had a huge order for a subscription box company. It was 20,000 samples that I had to make. And as I said, like I was doing it all by myself. So it took me all summer to make these 20,000 samples. I know, right? Like coffee was key. And I listened to her podcast, Online Marketing Made Easy, throughout the majority of that, and I would say like she helped me learn so much about marketing and was definitely key to who I am today and what I do, because I just got to listen, I just binged her podcast because I needed something to do while I was making all these samples. And I would love to reach out to her and just say thank you. Like, thank you for this free thing that you gave me that changed my life and turned me into this marketing strategist.
That is all the time we have for you today on The Gold Mine. I would like to thank our guest, Megan Brame, for sharing so much insight and information. And of course, you, the audience, thank you so much for viewing. Have a great day. Have a great week. That is all the time we have for you today. Thank you for watching.